Well, we're here to talk about a poem by Aaron Simon. Hi, Connie.
Hi.
Austin.
Hi.
Jamie.
Hi.
Here we go. It's by Aaron Simon. It's from a book called On My Way, and it was published by Breather Editions in 2018. So for this filming, it's new. It's a brand new book. And the subtitle is After Frank O'Hara. Before I even read the poem, well, the main title is McCoppin Hub, which is a proper noun, refers to a place. And then the subtitle is After Frank O'Hara. So what is McCoppin Hub? Anybody look it up?
It's like a park plaza, right?
It's a public plaza
Yeah.
in the Mission District. And, you know, we've talked about Jack Kerouac's October in the Railroad Earth, which partly is set in the Mission. What's the Mission famous for back in the old days, anyway? Anybody know San Francisco? You spent the summer in San Francisco.
It's a squatter's hub, isn't it? McCoppin is?
Well, McCoppin Hub is, but the Mission generally in the old days was thought of as a place for cheap rents and winos, as they might have been called, or homeless. So here it is. McCoppin Hub, after Frank O'Hara. Canary palm on-ramp. Feels like rain, but looks like orange, peevish, falconer, minor god. Passes me on the right. Oh, what I'd give to drink a midwinter night's draught, clink a golden thermos, and protract this privileged instant. Everyone stops to take it in, pardoning our construction. Fresh asphalt, sour, has the makings of a hit. All the wrong notes redrawn, the right ones bespoke, like cinematic clouds' last acrobatic gasp. Walking among the cheats and twitterers, what do you do with a kid like me? Short of starving, I'll have to eat myself. So what is everyone stops to take it in? What is it? Would you guess?
The side of putting up the fence, maybe.
And what's your evidence of that?
Pardoning our construction.
Right.
I was thinking of how you see those signs. Sometimes, usually, they say "pardon our appearance," which I always think
and pardon
is
our
funny.
construction.
Like, it's very personal. That like I walked outside in my pajamas and sorry that I don't look nice today.
Yeah, that's right. So yes, that is the evidence that it refers to. It's kind of an oblique reference to someone who doesn't know the story about the fencing in of this public plaza. Everybody just stops to take it in. Jamie, take it in? What is that? It's an idiom for what?
Just to cope with the sight and the sort of dissonance that might arise from seeing what was such a public, free space being fenced off and closed in.
Yeah. So let's get to the whole question of how is this after Frank O'Hara? In what way is it O'Hara-esque? In what way is it New York School? I do this, I do that. It's not really I do this, I do that. Austin, you start us off.
Well, to return to the thermos, I feel like that's a sort of signpost as a lunch poem too. Like you bring your soup and lunch, or there was several moments where it seems to gesture maybe toward the construction workers or the people who are implementing this on behalf of other people. And so they're bringing their lunch, or they're kind of the ones putting this into the practice without having actually.
That's really
chosen
great, Austin. Yeah, I don't think this is... Midwinter Nights throws us off. I think this is, in fact, a lunch poem. I think that Aaron Simon is walking by. Protract this privileged incident. While linguistically that's not O'Hara-esque so much, but it really is an O'Hara-esque lunch poem idea. How so?
I mean, O'Hara was constantly inserting these sort of privileged art, like critic, art world person, like narrative into like the everyday New York that was not about Rachmaninoff, was not about Grieg, was not about all these people, but he still sort of synthesized those.
High-low.
High-low, yeah. So that's sort of what we're getting, I think.
So can you, Connie, can you try to start us off translating into plain language what the phrase protract this privileged instant means?
Well, the instant is like one moment or the present moment in time, I think. So whoever's speaking, obviously, to me, I actually took it as the person at the end who's saying, I'll have to eat myself, as the one that's speaking. So he doesn't feel very good about this situation. And the privilege is obviously everyone's who's stopping to take a look at what's going around.
Those who are privileged can take it in.
Right. The instant
If
for
it's
them.
happening to your home tonight, you would never use take it in. Take it in is dilettantish. Take it in is passing by. Am I right about the diction of that? I think so.
Yeah. But I think everyone is also the ones who are stopping for that instant, but they're not taking real notice the way this instant means to the person who's being blocked off.
That's
from
very
it.
nice, thank you. And so I think we are starting to get toward what's O'Hara-esque, what's after Frank O'Hara about this.
I also read that protract the privilege instant as kind of not only privilege in a negative sense, but also the fact that this poem makes it into a privileged instant that we can kind of hold up and objectify and analyze and see the way that all of these contradictory forces are at work in it. And it's protracted by, being converted from experience into a poem. So maybe that's like the meta poem in the middle of it.
Say again, in short, what the meta poem in the middle of it is?
Just like making something into a poem or converting experience into a poem.
Right.
Protracts something that's just momentary, ephemeral, and sort of makes it maybe not permanent, but at least gives it more staying power.
That's really well said. Simon, more than O'Hara, uses double-intended idioms and puns. Mm-hmm. It's more languagey, I would say. Can we give some examples? Let's accumulate some examples of these kinds of puns or double meanings. We already looked at one draft. That was minor.
Maybe
Others?
The makings of a hit.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a sec. That's very ironic, right? Mm-hmm. Fresh asphalt sour has the makings of a hit. What does that mean?
It means it's something that can be readily sold. And I think it's sort of addressing how this public space is now like a private commodity. It's something to be sold to individual passers-by. And
what would hit refer to in common parlance?
Like a popular movie.
Popular movie, yeah, or a song.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we know it's probably a song because of the next line, all the wrong notes. Redrawn. There's all kinds of punning going on there, right? Let's go back to wrong notes. All the wrong notes redrawn. What does that possibly mean?
Well, you could apply it again to the fence going up, and that an alteration of this public space is occurring right now, and so wrong notes, as in the openness of it 24/7, is being changed to only open at the bespoke times of daylight whenever a certain kind of interaction with the space is allowed.
And where does the quoted 3 lines come from at the end? Connie, a few minutes ago, seemed to suggest it was a version of the speaker. I'm not so sure. Is it being overheard?
Maybe someone who used to be an inhabitant of the space, because I'll have to eat myself just sounds so radical. And the short of starving, I feel like indicates he's definitely not the everyone. He's not the privileged for sure. So
Is that the person, this presumably precarious, destitute, hungry person, is the one walking among the cheats and twitterers? We had thought it was the O'Hara-esque speaker, Aaron Simon poet type. We had thought that was the person walking through this scene. But it seems to suggest at the end that one of the people displaced is the one walking among cheats and twitterers. Yeah. If that's the case, then what?
I had sort of been linking that thought of everyone and I to Frank O'Hara's The Day Lady Died. And about O'Hara, I thought a lot about O'Hara's like outsiderness and how he was constantly the observer, but now the observer is in like was always included in that everyone. Like as much as he was outside based on queerness, based on a lot of factors, he was still very much in this privileged circle, and he wasn't actually the person who was the I, the everyone and I.
That is effing brilliant. Oh my gosh. Yeah, let's go with that. Everyone is the end, the last breathless moment in the great poem. I mean, it is the anthologized poem, but it also happens to be one of the great O'Hara poems. Not always true about anthologized poems. Mm-hmm. And it comes at the end, and when you see everyone there, you know he's not talking about all the people of the world or all the people of the culture. He's talking about his gang, his people, everyone, my people. Those of us who are standing there in the five spot. And yet everyone is a big claim word.
Yeah.
Right? So Aaron is sticking that in the middle, and it stops too, right? I think stops breathing, right? It's
yeah.
Wow, I think maybe that's the specific reference, the day Lady died. Let's push this analogy to the day Lady died just a little further. In that poem, what's O'Hara doing that day, the day Lady died? What's he doing?
He's just going about his day, buying cigarettes, a book for somebody, and
then
he gets
suddenly
stopped.
He is stopped is a word. Well, he is brought up short by the news. And this is, in fact, what's happening here. That Aaron Simon, San Francisco resident, is walking around among cheats and Twitterers and is brought up short by the demise of a public place. So are you persuaded of the analogy? Is it after Frank O'Hara? Is that a light kind of dedication that lures us to put it on a syllabus near O'Hara? What do you think?
Well, the way that I see it, whenever you invoke someone like that, obviously you're not just going to do a pastiche of them and imitate them directly. So I see it as maybe gentle critique in some ways of some of the moments that you might see O'Hara as having shortcomings, at least maybe in a political sense in the poem. So these moments are kind of taking him and going beyond in a certain direction.
What do you think, Connie?
I think so. He said it pretty well. I think there's definitely more a politicized tone in this just because you are given the context of this specific place, and like the link you sent us, we know what's going on now, and you have questions like who's to say who has the right to this public space? Is it just for the people there, or is it for the people who have been coming there before it was heavily occupied?
And Jamie, what would O'Hara... Thank you, that was great. Mm-hmm. It puts me in mind of O'Hara's stance toward the city, which is, I think, easy to love and easy to critique. Let's do the critique. What is Aaron Simon's San Francisco saying to O'Hara?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to return to the point about the fence being an opaque thing, and sort of about the opacity of a city, and that while there is all this thriving and you're going about your day, there are these opaque things happening all around you that you don't understand, but you run parallel to. And I think Simon captures that pretty well. Like the peevish falconer, wasn't really sure what to do with that.
Well, it's an analogy. It's a simile.
Yeah.
The rain, canary palm on-ramp. Okay, not a kind of a detritus, just a sort of San Francisco thing. It feels like rain, but looks like an orange peevish falconer. What? Something passes him on the right. Something passes him on the right. Is he driving? No, he's walking.
I thought he was driving at first too, but
yeah, passes me is usually, and maybe he's on a bike, possibly.
Yeah, so
we don't know. Opacity. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess there are those O'Hara ticks. Like orange itself, to me, is an O'Hara tick.
Big O'Hara word.
Yeah. Yeah, the everyone and I, but we went over that. And then this sort of focus on like taste and eating, I thought were also very much in the vein of O'Hara and very much after him.
Austin, Jamie is brilliant, but he sidestepped the question a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you and Connie, and then we'll get final words and wrap up. So if I'm the poem, if I'm Simon's San Francisco, I'm Simon's Mission District, embody that. What is that stance saying to O'Hara's New York?
Well, one way that I see it as being a little bit of a critical take on O'Hara is that I don't think Simon is accepting himself from this. Like, I think that he very much implicates himself in these dynamics. Like, I don't know if he's maybe not a native or whatever of San Francisco, but obviously with whatever job he has and everything, he is living here, and he's going to inevitably have something to do with the things that are going on around him. Even if he sees himself as a spectator or a poet, he's not so separate in the way that maybe O'Hara presents himself in his poems.
That makes sense. You're giving him somewhat more self-consciousness by using the word privileged in relation to the privileged instant. I have to say that exclamation point does make it O'Hara-esque, because O'Hara kind of says, oh, I'm so lucky to be here at lunchtime seeing all this fecundity. I'm so happy. And there's a certain amount of that naivete there maybe. But anyway, Connie, your thought on Simon's San Francisco as a response to O'Hara's New York?
This isn't going to answer your question at
That's
all,
okay.
but
It's a hard
I'm
question.
actually curious about the exclusion of the period at the end of I'll have to eat myself. I don't know if that says anything back to O'Hara's work, but I feel like he leaves it kind of open-ended for you to go on and give more room than maybe O'Hara does. And like Austin was saying, I feel like there's more space to have a critique for that.
Good. Okay, final thoughts on this. Something that you wanted to say but didn't have a chance to.
Yeah, I wanted to add to what Connie was saying about the end and the lack of period. I thought that was a sort of final moment, even though it's a quote, found speech or overheard by somebody who's not the poet. I think that the lack of period is sort of a way to kind of make him present again by sort of emphasizing that this is selected. Like, I listened to this period, this amount of the speech, and stopped listening here and selected it and placed it here, and maybe more things were said by this person, but this is what I am going to include and use as the ending of my poem.
Nice, thank you. Connie?
Maybe I'll just have to do some more outside research on this on my own, but I was still had questions about the canary palm on ramp, feels like rain but looks like orange, peevish falconer, minor god. I think we briefly said, like, Jamie was saying, I didn't really know what to do with it. I'm assuming Canary Palm is a real place, but I have to look that up in relations with the context of this whole thing. But that part just kind of stopped me, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm sure it's something that sets up the poem if I had the context of what it meant, but the peevish falconer part just kind of stopped me.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe that's, abides by what Jamie was saying, is that this poet tends toward the non-real, phrasing. And certainly, as we pointed out, much more punny and languagey than you're going to get in most of O'Hara. Well, thank you. This was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.